One of the benefits of having a lot of crossovers and SUVs in your showroom is that, well, if you're an automaker, you can differentiate your products really in accordance with what your customers are looking for. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you're looking for something that's compact and rugged and off-roady, well, Ford's got the Bronco Sport. And on the same platform, if you're looking for something that's compact and rugged but can still carry a lot of stuff, well, they've got the Ford Maverick compact pickup. But if you want something that's a bit more on-road oriented, that's not going to go traipsing across the fields, that's really more about the urban adventure and being able to park in downtown city streets a lot more easily, well, they've got the Escape. And for 2023, Ford has decided to give the escapists, the people who are buying the Escape, more of what they're looking for. For 2023, Ford has done away with a lot of the old trim levels and has simplified things a little bit. Gone are things like the SE and the SEL and the SES, and now we have a much more simplified structure. We have the Base and the Active on the low end of the trim levels. You've got the Platinum and the new standalone plug-in hybrid at the high end of the trim levels, and in the middle, you've got this. This is the brand new for 2023 ST line, and it's going to come in 3 different grades. The regular ST line, the ST line Select, and the ST line Elite, which is what this one is. Now, how do you recognize an ST line? A couple different ways. First is the monochromatic paint. Everything here is painted body color. There's no more painted wheel arches that are in gray or black rubber bumpers or things like that, but there is a black mesh grille up front. On this model, the ST Line Elite, you also get this LED light bar that stretches what they call coast to coast between the 2 LED headlights as well. It's meant to give it a more on-road car-like look, a bit more urban. You're not going to see things like big fender flares or auxiliary lights popped on top. This thing is really meant to be more about the city on-road adventure, easier to park downtown. Again, more of what Escape buyers are looking for. This is really what the industry calls a mid-cycle refresh. It's not a complete redesign of the Ford Escape. They didn't really need to do that. They just introduced the last one for the 2020 model year. So it was already pretty much fresh and up to date. But a mid-cycle really helps it keep it fresh and up to date with some styling changes, some interior bits. But the powertrains are all carryover, and there are 4 options to choose from. There's a 181 horsepower turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. There's a 250 horsepower turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, or you have your choice of 2 hybrid powertrains, a 199 horsepower regular hybrid that's actually available on a number of different trim levels, or you can get the new plug-in hybrid, which actually is now its own standalone trim level. Ford says that it expects to get about 37 miles of all-electric range before the engine kicks in, and it makes 210 horsepower. So you have a number of different options depending on the fuel economy and the performance that you want. That's not any different than it was in 2022, but then it really didn't need to be. Along with the modest changes to the front and rear end styling, you also have some updates to the cabin as well. Now, this one being the ST line gets a special treatment for the cabin. You'll notice it only comes in ebony with red stitching, but this red stitching is pretty much everywhere. The seats, the center console, the doors, the steering wheel as well. There's also a flat bottom, sporty looking steering wheel, which actually feels pretty good in your hands. They have changed around the interior a little bit. You'll notice there's a couple of new features. First, there is a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster that appears on certain trim levels, and there's an optional 13.2-inch touchscreen that is also optional on certain models and standard on other trims. The biggest change there is that when you get that great big screen, the climate controls are moved up into that screen. They're now touch-sensitive controls for the climate control. That's not necessarily a bad thing for Ford. Ford actually does pretty good touch-sensitive controls, and these are rather high up in the dash as well, so they're fairly easy to see and use. The benefit for this is that they've moved the start button from the really hard-to-find area behind the steering wheel to just down there on the lower part of the center stack, so that does improve the usability of this interior. Material quality for the new 23 Escape is about what it was, which is to say around mid-pack. There's some nice textures in here, and especially on things like the plug-in hybrid model, you've got some really good looking faux wood grain trim. In here you've got carbon fiber look plastic, and there's some soft touch materials, but there's also a lot of hard materials as well. So it's not going to be winning any luxury awards, but frankly it is acceptable for the class that it's in. One characteristic that they have kept from the 2022 to 2023 model year Escapes is the overall room. There's actually quite a bit of passenger room inside this vehicle, both in the front and in the back seat as well. And part of it is due to this sliding bench seat that can go 6 inches fore and aft, so you can maximize your legroom or you can maximize your cargo room. But there's also plenty of headroom in this thing as well. Despite the fact that it's got the optional moonroof on here, I can sit back here and my head doesn't touch the headliner, which is kind of extraordinary given that I'm about 6 feet tall and this is a compact crossover. So if you are one of the escapists that really prefers your adventures to be of the urban variety instead of traipsing off into the wilderness, well, the new 23 Ford Escape really does seem to offer more of what you might be looking for. Prices will start at about $29,000, including destination, for a base model 23 Escape, and they will range up into the low $40,000 level for a fully loaded plug-in hybrid version. Ordering has already started at your local Ford dealer, so if you want one, better call one up. The cars themselves will be arriving in showrooms in the early part of 2023. If you'd like to learn more about the new 2023 Ford Escape, you can look everything up at Cars.com.